have to tell you guys about my mushroom journey. Welcome back to the Sacred Souls podcast. I'm your host, Mariel Heather, and this is season 3, episode 2. And I really want to share with you what happened with my mushroom journey because it was so life changing and so intense. So, the reason why I'm sharing this with you in the first place is because it was that impactful to me that I feel like everyone needs to know about this if you don't already. I know there's a misconception about using mushrooms to just get high and to have fun and all of that. And that is obviously like one of the uses that you can use them for, but that was not what I did. I did not use it to get high, and it was not for that intention. It was specifically for a spiritual experience and to be therapeutic. I've been wanting to do a mushroom journey for the past, I think, like 5 or 6 years, but I feel like when you use plant medicine, that's not something that you force. And I have like certain conditions that I wanted to do or not to do. Like I did not want to do it in a group setting. And I just felt like I would know when the time was right because I didn't want to just also do it with just anyone. So I patiently waited for all of these years, and I just knew that when it was the right timing, the opportunity would present itself to me. So the way it works with this woman is that you have 3 Zoom sessions with her, and for me it was Zoom because I don't live near her, and that's just to create rapport and to figure out what the intention is that you want to go into the journey with, because that's basically the most important part. So we had these sessions, and just from talking to her, I was like, this is definitely a good fit. And she felt the same way about me. So after that, it was off to the races. The intention that I had set for this journey was I wanted to heal and to figure out why I have such trust issues. I mean, for this lifetime, I already know, why I have certain trust issues because obviously it's certain circumstances and trauma that I've been through, but I felt like it was something at a deeper level. And even if it wasn't, I was like, let's just try to clear this because I've tried to clear this in so many other ways and it's not working. And so maybe I need something deeper. So it was trusting people and trusting in relationships, and the last thing was feeling safe in the world. And this isn't feeling physically safe. It's more, I always just kind of felt like something bad was going to happen, which is very conflicting for my mind because I'm such a positive person and I'm really into manifesting. And I know logically that, I can manifest whatever I want, but there was still like something nagging me in the back of my mind, that like this little voice that was saying like don't trust and like something bad might happen, and it was just really pissing me off because I'm like, you have to go. So that was the other intention behind what I wanted to do. And what's crazy is that the mushrooms, they are an intelligent being and they know what to do. Like they know exactly how to cut through and cut past all of your defense mechanisms and find the exact spot or trauma or memory or whatever it is from whatever lifetime, and they could find the root cause and rewire it for you. Going into this, I had no idea like what to expect whatsoever. People always tell me when they have different mushroom journeys, they said that like they realize they're one with the universe and blah blah blah. So I just thought this was going to be some sort of like a lighter experience. I don't know. I don't know what I was thinking. Whatever I was thinking, it was not what happened. Okay, so let's get into exactly how the experience went and what I did. So I did it in Northern California. So I drove like 7.5 hours from where I was living at the time in Orange County. And actually, I brought my dog with me, which was another condition that I had. Like I said, I wanted to only do this if my dog could be with me because she is literally my other half. And to do something this, intense and spiritual and deep, like I really wanted her to be there for support because we do everything together. So we arrived at this little round cabin house thing. I don't know what you'd call it, like a dome house. And it was so cute. You can look on my social media. I posted a video of it there. And I arrived the night before. And you basically just kind of like settle in. And this place is in nature. And what's so crazy is this is like how I knew that this was going to be some sort of an experience. I had never been to this town before. I had never even heard of this town until I found this woman. I drive in, and as I'm driving in, it's like a compound, like I said, in the forest. As I'm driving in, I'm like, I had a dream about this piece of land just a few months ago. And in my dream, there were no structures, like there were no homes or anything. It was just an empty piece of land. But I always remember my dreams. There are always messages. And I'm like, this is so crazy. Like, I literally know this piece of land. So I was like, all right, this is going to be interesting. I know I'm here for a reason. So I get to the place and we check in, we settle in, all of that. And then the next morning, she comes over and she brought 2 grams of mushrooms, which is, I heard that like a really full dose would be like 3 to 3.5 grams, but I definitely wanted to ease into it because I'm such a sensitive person and I didn't want to like overdo it. I don't know. So she said that she thought 2 grams would be good for me and that she brought another half in case as I started, that if I wanted a little bit more. So I was like, all right, that sounds good. So when she did give it to me, it was very ceremonial. Like I said, it was very purposeful, very intentional. She gave it to me with mushrooms, honey, and cacao, and each offering had like a different purpose. And we, set the intention, we opened up sacred space, and basically she just stays with you the entire time. She can write down, like, if you want to stop at any moment and tell her anything to take notes on, she does that. Although I did remember everything. But it was good to have her there to take notes and to just talk things through. So she's just there to, for moral support, or I guess if like anything, intense happened and you needed her. So I took the 2 grams of mushrooms, the honey, the cacao, all of that. And then what makes this different than other journeys is that you close your eyes the entire time. And I know that some people are like, but why? Like, that takes away from like all the colors and the nature and blah, blah, blah. And it's because it's more of an inward journey. Like, it's great to experience all the vivid colors and all of those things, but that wasn't really the intention behind this specific journey. So I closed my eyes, and again, like I said, I had no idea like what to expect, but what happened was not what I was expecting. So I closed my eyes, I lay down, and I am immediately taken into a memory or like a scene of me being in my mom's womb. And side note, I was a C-section baby and I always knew that, but that was pretty much all I knew. Like, some people say that they are very familiar with their birth story and that their mom always talked about it with them. That isn't something that I had. Like, my mom had never really told me about my birth story other than I was a C-section baby. And I never really asked her about it because I didn't really think that this mattered, but I was wrong. So I'm in her womb and everything feels like so happy and like I'm so happy to be in there. And then all of a sudden everything changes and it starts to feel like so heavy, so intense, and so emotional. And I start to panic and like literally it felt like my heart was going to beat out of my chest. It's like I felt all these emotions and fear all at the same time. And then like a hand reached in and just like ripped me out. And after that whole scene, like I was crying. And also, I should mention, I am not an emotional person, like whatsoever. I hardly ever cry. And I'm not saying that's a good thing by any means, but that's just, it is what it is. Like, that's the type of person I have been. And so feeling all of these emotions and crying and feeling this intensity, that was a lot for me, and it was new, and I didn't even know how to, like, what to make of it or how to handle these emotions. So after this first round of experience, I opened my eyes, and I honestly, like, I wanted to be done because I was like, that sucked, like that was painful, I don't know what that is, like this is not what I signed up for. And again, like, I don't like heavy emotions like that. So I was like, no, this is not what I want. And so, like, I didn't even know what to say, but the facilitator, she could tell that, like, she saw me crying and she could tell that something was like going on. So she was like, okay, do you want to talk about it? And I was like, let's go outside. Like, I was literally trying everything to get out of this. Like, I was like, maybe we should go outside. And she was like, okay, we've already discussed previously that you have an avoidant attachment style. So she's like, I would invite you to not go outside and to just stay and go back into the journey. And so I'm like, "Ugh, fine." Like, she sees right through me. She's the best and she's so right. And I'm so glad that she was there because honestly, if she wasn't, I would have just like stopped the journey right then and there. So I closed my eyes, I went back in, and we continued on with this scene. So I go back in, close my eyes, and I'm back in the womb, or I'm back, being born and all of that. And they start to show me. So again, the intensity is there, and I'm half panicking just because I even actually said this to the facilitator. Like, I was like, these emotions are so intense. Like, are these going to go away? Like, did I unlock something now that's going to be here forever? Like, I was literally so worried because I was like, I cannot deal with these emotions for the rest of my life. Like, this heaviness, like, this is not okay. It just felt so, it felt like, it literally felt like the walls were closing in on me. And it was like, I can't escape these emotions. So she was like, no, like, it's not going to last. Like, this is just heightened because of the journey. And like, everything that's happening is coming up for a reason and it has a purpose. And this is to be healing. So I'm like, all right, fine. So then they start to show me in my mind again, my eyes are closed and I'm seeing all these visions, and the mushrooms are basically rewiring my brain. And it was so crazy because I was actually seeing them do it. So they would show me. So first they showed me, okay, you were born like by being like ripped out. And because of that, I felt like I was ripped away from my home and from my first relationship, because your first relationship is with your mom because you're in the womb. And just the fact that I was like ripped away from that, and they said since it wasn't like a natural birth, or like the way you would naturally be born, um that traumatized me. And that's what made me not trusting in life in general, because I felt like all of a sudden like everything is fine, I'm in my home, I'm doing great, and then I'm just bam, like pulled away. And I obviously didn't know or understand at the time what was going on. So that, they said, was the root of what made me not feel safe in the world. And that also made me feel like disconnected and kind of disassociated, and just like have these trust issues. So that was like one thread. So they showed me like, this is what you thought, this is what you experienced. And then there would be a line. And then they would show me like, no, but this is really what happened. And then like it just kept going like this until we rewired everything. So that was one thing that they said. The next thing they said was that I thought that when that happened, like when I was born, that my mom wasn't there for me, and that like stuck with me. Just like that feeling of like, I'm there for me, like being abandoned or whatever it manifested into. But they said that that's actually not the case, and that she wasn't there for me because she was under, drugs and stuff from the C-section. And so she like consciously couldn't be there for me. And they also showed me that she also felt bad about it too, because she didn't get to have that experience that she wanted to. And so they were telling me that this whole thing was kind of like a misunderstanding of me thinking that like my mom wasn't there for me when I was born, which I honestly never consciously thought. But apparently my body thought that, or somewhere subconsciously that was thought. So they were rewiring that. And then from there, they said that, and this part I feel like is so important because this can be applied to so many people, but they said that when I was like ripped away from the womb, they were like, you were just leaving one home, like one place to go to someplace better. So they were like, don't think of it as like a bad thing that you left. Like, think of it as you were leaving one place because you're going to someplace better. And they said to always remember that for like when I move, or when I like finish a chapter with something in my life. Like they said, whenever you're leaving something, know that it's because you are moving on to something better. And that was like the rewiring and the reprogram they did for that memory. And so, because sometimes I panic about moving, like I'll be like, well, what if, it's not good, or this and that. And so that rewired that part. Um, and it just went on for like a little while until that was done. But as it kept going, I was like mentally kicking and screaming and being stubborn. And I wanted to get out of these, again, heavy emotions, because this entire time, like, I'm crying. And it felt just like so upsetting. Um, and after that, they showed me. So I was like, okay, I want to be done with this. Like, let's move on to future stuff, because I'm always so future oriented. So I'm like, let's look at future stuff. So then they showed me Moab, Utah, which was interesting because I've been there a bunch of times and I've always liked it, but I never felt like super, super connected there. Like I never felt like that was one of the most, my favorite places of all. So I was surprised that that was what showed up other than like over other places that I actually feel more of a connection with for the land. And I was already planning on going there on my nomadic trip. So I'm like, that's interesting. Like I am already going there, but I'm going to so many places. So I'm like, why Moab? But okay. So they started to show me that and they were saying like it was very positive and they were showing me the land and saying that I had a past life there and just that it's going to be like just something was going to be positive there, but it cut off like they cut off that scene and they were like, we're not done with the stuff with your mom. And I'm like, oh my God, no more, please. So then they literally like showed like it was a visual of me being like dragged back to this whole thing and it continued on. So then there was just like layer after layer. So the next layer was they brought up my breast cancer journey, which I was surprised because I felt like that journey is complete and I wasn't even thinking about it at all. And I didn't expect that to be like have anything to do with anything. But I trust the process, whether I wanted to or not. So they showed me my breast cancer journey and they actually were telling me like what the bigger picture and the bigger purpose of that was. And just to give you some background, my grandma on my dad's side, we were really close growing up, and she was kind of like a mom to me too. And when I was 19, she died. And after that, my dad had gone to a medium, and the medium told him that my grandma had a miscarriage before he was born, and that that was supposed to be me, but that I jumped ship at the last second, which sounds like me. I'm like, change my mind. And so I remember him telling me that when I was 19, and then I like literally haven't thought of that since then. And they brought that up, and I've also always felt like this was my last life here, like earthbound at least. Like, I don't know if you guys like how much you are into soul work, but from what I know and learn and have experienced from spirit and from everyone that I've talked to who has like crossed over and all these things is that our soul continues on, like whether it's on Earth or like a different dimension or a different planet. We're always doing different things. And so Earth is just like one of the realms that we could participate in. And I've always just felt like this was my last life for Earth. And I've always just really felt like a visitor and that I'm just like done here and like this space or this planet at least. I know that sounds crazy, but that's just how I felt. And I always felt crazy for thinking that because I'm like, I know this sounds really weird, but they brought that up and they said that that's true and that I was supposed to be like my dad's older brother or sister, I don't know. That was my soul. And that since this was going to be my last life, I wanted to help my mom and clear the mother line and the lineage, like the cancer lineage and all of that stuff that she has on that side. And so they said I literally sacrificed like the first half of my life and just to help my mom and to go through cancer and to heal it naturally because my mom, my grandma on that side, she had died from breast and ovarian cancer. And then my mom had thyroid cancer. And I'm not even sure if like cancer, I'm assuming it continues on if they're telling me that I'm clearing the lineage here. So they said that I literally like sacrificed just to help my mom. That was like the bigger purpose of everything. And when they said that, I was like, okay, I remember distinctly thinking this in the journey. I was like, I thought I was a nice person, but I did not think I was that nice. Like, that is so nice. The fact that I was like, no, it's like my last life. So let's like leave this just to help my mom. And like, imagine the connection that I have with my mom that I didn't even realize. So it was just really, again, upsetting. And because it was like nice but sad, and then there was grief, and then there was just so many emotions that were coming up all at the same time. And so they said that now that my cancer journey was complete this past November, that now the karma with my mom is complete and it's time to live my life for me. going forward. Like now I'm on a new timeline, and they were like, now it's time for you to do things that you want to do and to have fun, and like all of this other like heaviness from this past timeline and this past karma is done. And I was like, wow, that's so interesting and so crazy, because I was already like planning on having this new timeline where I'm like leaving California and going on a nomadic trip and having more fun and doing more things that I want to do and putting myself first. So this was really tracking, but it was a lot, obviously, like what I'm telling you, like all of this information in just a condensed period of time. So that was another thread. I think that was like the major highlights with the womb and my mom. But what I took away before I move on, I just want to say what I took away from all of that part of the journey is I never knew how important the womb is, and how it has a consciousness, and how the programming, and how I always knew that like you absorbed patterning and all of this stuff from your mom when you're in the womb, but I didn't know the extent of it, and I didn't know how much it can affect you for your entire life. And I'll get more to that when I'm done, because that's when I'll tell you about what I've noticed the aftermath effects have been. But after this, after that part, I was like, okay, can we please go back to future stuff and like have things be lighter? So we finally, like after hours of this, we move on to future stuff. They show me Moab again. And I'm like, okay, what is it about Moab? And so one of the things that I'm going to be doing there is I'm going base jumping, which if you don't know what that is, you literally jump off a cliff. A guy is attached to your back. So it's not like you're just jumping off alone and then you have a parachute, or he does at least. And I've been skydiving before when I was 21, and I thought it was like the best thing ever. I love things that give you an adrenaline rush and that are extreme. And so this is one of those things. And so they said that Moab represents fun. And then they also said, though, that something was going to happen relating with my career, which I just think is really interesting, because I'm like, what could possibly be happening for me with my career in Moab? Like, I'm so curious to see like what this is. Um, so yeah, we'll see what happens. I'm going there in just a few days. But um they also showed me like hands coming out of the sky above Arches National Park, like this. And it kind of reminded me when they showed me of the Ace of Pentacles card in the original tarot, because it's just one hand, but I feel, or at least it looks like one hand, maybe it's two. But to me, like that card represents, like a gift from God, or like a gift out of nowhere. And I don't know, it just made me think of that card. And so I'm just wondering like what that has to do with everything when I'm there, but I guess more will be revealed. But when I was done with the journey a few days later, I was home and I was researching like different yoga studios in Moab, because I was like, okay, I want to, work out while I'm there, do some yoga, get connected with the community. And the first post, like the most recent post from the yoga studio there, it was hands like I want to show you, but I can't because I'm on my phone. But it's hands like this with cacao beans over it. And I was like, oh my God, like what are the odds? Okay, that like literally it's that vision that I saw, and with cacao of all things. So I'm definitely going to be going to that studio and seeing what happens, because I'm like, maybe it's a sign. I don't know. But I love when you just, live your life in this magic and trust the synchronicities. And then each thing is like this magical clue that brings you one step closer to something that brings you joy or your destiny, or, whatever else it is. So lastly, with the journey, like I would just say like the other major thing that happened was, um, I kind of just asked like what I have to do to heal like relationships going forward, or just like anything about that. And they like literally rushed me to Florida. And I have never really cared for Florida. My dad and stepmom have a house there. And so I've been a bunch of times just because I grew up in New York, and like we went to Florida a lot, but I never felt a connection there whatsoever. I would never move there. And so they said to go there, and they didn't mean move there, but they meant like just for a little bit. And so I might go there on my journey. We will see. But that is possibly a destination for one of my stops on my nomadic trip. And then we'll see what happens there. So after the journey was over, like I said, it was so emotional. I felt a little like shaken up by the whole thing because it was just not what I was expecting at all. And I remember afterwards, I told the facilitator, I was like, I can't believe I even like paid money for this torture and like for this experience. And like, this is a lot. Because when you're done, like it was like 5 hours, and just because you're done with the journey doesn't mean it's like you're done and it's like out of your system. It didn't actually leave my system or make me feel like it was out of my system until 9 o'clock at night, and I had taken it at 10:30 in the morning. So once we were done, though, I was like, okay, that was crazy. This was a lot. Like, I don't even know what to make of all of this. And she said that, I had been repressing all these emotions for so long that it takes a lot of energy to do so. And so she was like, now that you have felt them and released them and gone through them and rewired them, she was like, I bet you're going to have so much more energy now. And I was like, okay, I really hope so. And that's such a good point. So what I learned afterwards was that the integration process is pretty much almost more important than the actual journey itself. I mean, obviously the journey is the most important thing because that's where the rewiring and the clearing and all of that is happening. But I didn't know like the effects of what I did until it was afterwards. And so the rest of that day, I just felt like I was emotionally hit by a truck, and I felt like physically sick. So I just tried to sleep as much as I could. And then the next day, I still felt pretty sick, but after I ate breakfast, I felt a lot better. And the first thing I noticed that was so crazy is that my mind was so calm. Like, I have been an overthinker my entire life, and I didn't even think it was a problem because that was all I knew. But my mind was like constantly going a million miles an hour, and I could like multitask and just think of like a million things at once. And I honestly even liked it because I was like, oh, I'm always like working on something in my mind, and like things are always happening. But now that I saw how it felt, after, I was like, okay, this is so much better. This feels like calm, relaxing, quiet. It's not like the frenetic energy that, again, I didn't even realize that was going on. Um, and so at first I was like, I hope this lasts. Like, I hope this is not just like a side effect from the mushroom still being in my system. But I'm happy to say that that actually has lasted, because now tomorrow will be a month since I've done it. And it's just so much better this way. And what I learned and realized was that when you have such a traumatic experience, especially at birth, because think about it, like that is how you entered life, like with that experience. And so that set the stage. And obviously at that age, like you aren't processing and talking out and consciously realizing what happened. So because that was so traumatizing to me, it just really dysregulated my nervous system. And that's why my nervous system was always constantly, and my mind was constantly, trying to just think of a million things all at once because it was in fight or flight and in survival mode. And it was just, so dysregulated. And now that that was healed and rewired and cleared and processed, now everything is calm. And the good news is now I can, like, I'm still thinking things, obviously. But when it comes to planning and making decisions, it's like I don't overthink it. It's just like I think about it once and then we make the decision. And this isn't like a thing that's going back and forth constantly. And just to give you an example, like normally when I booked this Airbnb and other hotels and Airbnbs, like normally that would take me forever because I would have to read every review. I wanted it to be like, make sure I was comfortable, and like I was being such a control freak about it. And I was like, I have to make sure that I'm safe and I have to make sure this and that. And now when I booked all of these things after my mushroom journey, it took me like 5 minutes. Like I literally like found a place and I was like, yeah, this looks good. And I booked it. I mean, I looked at the reviews for like a second and I'm like, okay, it has good reviews, the end. I didn't sit there and read every single one. And so not only is that obviously like less stressful in my mind, but it's also way less time consuming and I can be more productive and it's not like weighing me down. So that's like one of my most favorite things that I am loving. And to tie into that, it also is something that has to do with trust, right? So I had asked, like, why am I not trusting in life and in relationships and all of those things? And so this helped me trust more. So now when I book something or I decide something for the future, I just feel like I trust more that it'll be okay. Like I don't even think of that doubt. That doubt doesn't creep in anymore. And it's not like, but what if this happens? And what if this happens? It's like, that's not even there anymore. And it just feels so freeing to not have that. And that's why I like wanted to talk to you guys about this so badly because I'm like, please, everyone do a mushroom journey. Like the outcome and like the effects of it, this has just been so life changing. And also, it's like, how would I ever like I love all different modalities of healing. Obviously, like that's something that I do for a living. Um but like I don't see how I would ever have found and experienced and cleared what I did through anything else. And even like when I was done with my journey and I told the facilitator, like I was like, that was a lot. And she was like, well, you know, they always say that having a mushroom journey is like going through 10 years of psychotherapy and just like a very short time. And I was like, no, I did not hear that, but that makes a lot of sense. So that was like, I would say the biggest and first like huge change that I noticed. And then as time has gone on, like I said, I do feel like way more trusting in life and just in experiences. I haven't really met new people yet. So we'll see what happens when I do. I'll keep you guys posted on that. But it's it's just so crazy how like one experience can just completely alter the trajectory of like your mindset and your life and your vibe and your nervous system. And so now that I see this, like I know that I'm going to be able to help other people with not just my story of sharing this, but also like I've already incorporated it in my healing work as well. Okay, so I would just say the biggest takeaways are that I do feel like way more trusting in life in general. Like I just feel like everything will work out or like what's meant to be will be. And I don't feel like I'm forcing things anymore. Like if there was something I really wanted, like I would constantly be thinking about it and be like, no, this needs to happen. It needs to happen now, blah, blah, blah. Like I would be so in the masculine about it. And now I'm like, if it's going to happen, it's going to happen. And like, obviously, I'm still working towards things and I'm always going to be that way. But it's not that like anxious, like this has to happen now. It's more of like a flow. And that feels so much better for my life and for my nervous system and for my mental sanity. And lastly, I would just say that life doesn't feel as heavy as it did before the mushroom journey. It just feels more lighter and that yeah, it's just before it just felt very heavy. It felt like, okay, I'm someone who's been through a lot of things. And that was, I think, I wasn't making that my identity by any means. But it was obviously still in my energy system. And it was something that was like dysregulating my nervous system and holding me back in a way that I didn't even realize was happening. Ultimately, it's not even like the mushrooms that are necessarily like healing you or doing all of that. It's something, this is something that's already within us. And I feel like the mushrooms just help get through the resistance in our energy and get through, as I was saying earlier, like the defense mechanisms or anything that's blocking us. And they just help us reveal and release and like reunite with things that we already have inside. So I hope that this was helpful. And if you were a C-section baby or you had a baby with via C-section, I'm not saying that this applies to you and that like your life is ruined or that you have this trauma or anything like that. I am just sharing what I went through specifically. But with that being said, if you do need any help or clearing or anything like that, I am definitely your girl to do that because from what I've seen, like I can understand the womb more than like the average person who has not done a journey like this. Thank you so much for listening if you made it this far. And my next episode is going to be with a special guest. So I'm so excited about that. I'm going to be recording it right after this. So, yeah, I will see you guys in my next destination.